The end of an era for us and big things happening in New York Liberty Land. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you all for all the years you have listened with us. Dating back to November 8th, 2016, we had a young undergraduate guard at the University of Washington named Kelsey Plum as our first guest almost 9 years ago. And so as you can probably tell from the tone here, this is our last show here at Locked On Women's Basketball. I am immensely grateful to my incredible team who has worked with us together through the years. The great Jackie Powell, who will be joining us in a few minutes to talk about the New York Liberty, to our team of hosts, Chelsea Late and Missy Heydrich and Emily Adler and Hunter Cruz and Lincoln Schaefer, Natalie Heverin, who has done such incredible work for us as well. All the hosts we've had the privilege of working with through the years. And so, as I always say to you, it is our incredible team across the board. Go to the9sports.com, THEIX sports.com, sign up, find out what's ahead for us, because we're going to continue all the incredible work we are doing, of course, and that's going to extend into the audio video space as well. So can't wait to share what's ahead for us as well. A huge thank you to Locked On, to David Locke, to Ali Bronson, Nick Angstadt, and Ross Jackson, who believed in the show from day one, and wishing them all the best of luck with what's ahead, as over at the 9 Sports and the 9 Basketball, we will continue to cover every element of the women's sports space. So excited to be doing that with all of you. And of course, today, no different. We talk about the New York Liberty, and really excited to bring on Jackie Powell, who will be hosting. We'll be talking to the great Madeline Kenney about things as well. But just to take a moment for us to think through, this has been a place where you've had the opportunity to meet all of the vital people in the women's basketball space. Kelsey was a guest. So was Kelsey Mitchell, an early guest back in 2016. Dawn Staley and Sue Bird. Kathy Engelbert's been on the show. We've had multiple commissioners/presidents on the show. It was a very different time in women's basketball and women's sports. And so I've been very proud of the fact that within the confines of the Next, now the 9 Basketball, reaching 30 million people last year, and our email list, 55,000 strong and growing, the fact that we have an audience that cares about this. We've been able to tell these stories and give you guys insight and context and analysis, not about what's the biggest thing to click on today, but about a greater understanding, light rather than heat. It's something that we're dedicated to. Again, the9basketball.com, THEIX basketball.com, the9sports.com, THEIX sports.com, a chance to share with my incredible team, who I am privileged to work with every single day. And I can't wait to continue doing that. We have so much ahead. Boy, somebody who does so much of that work for us, somebody who I am privileged to have worked with dating back to the last decade now. And here we are here in late 2025 is Jackie Powell, someone who I consider like family, somebody who does incredible work. Jackie, as you kind of think through where the New York Liberty were back when this all started, I mean, they were still playing at Madison Square Garden when we began this quite some time ago. This is even predating the Westchester County Center, and where we are now here, where this is a team on the cusp of the playoffs, clearly. This is a team that's going to be in the playoffs, and yet just making the playoffs won't be nearly enough for the standard that they've raised to. It just, kind of take me through where you feel like they are now. And then I'm going to get out of your way and turn things over to you. And of course, talking to the great Madeline Kenney.
The defending champions are in a bit of a pickle. They have been bit very hard by the injury bug. And I think in the discussion I have with Maddie Kenney coming up, we're not only going to talk about the obvious, but we're going to talk about what's not been as obvious. She and I have put our heads together for a long time, really trying to figure out why they've been struggling, besides just the obvious of what these injuries are. What is it offensively that we've been seeing? Why has rebounding been such an issue for this team? Those are the main topics that we're going to get into. So, it was interesting to see them last night beat the Washington Mystics pretty handily. It was the first comfortable win that this team has had in a long time. And they did it without Sabrina Ionescu. They did it without Jonquel Jones. And they did it without Natasha Cloud. So Maddie and I are also going to get into what we saw from that night as well, and can they carry this over to what is going to be a battle for home court advantage in Phoenix on Saturday night, tomorrow night?
It's a deeply compelling game ahead, and of course we'll have Kathleen Geer there reporting about it over at the Nine Basketball, THEIX Basketball.com. Of course, your work on this subject is beyond anything that I could have expected. The depth, the journeys you always take us on are something that I care very deeply about. So I'm immensely grateful to you. I'm immensely grateful to everyone at the Nine Sports and the Nine Basketball. And as we go forward, I am beyond excited for what's ahead for all of us as well.
Hello, and I am here with Maddie Kenney of the New York Post. She is joining the show to talk about what has been going on with the now 5th place in the WNBA standings, New York Liberty. And, before we get into it, I just want to remind you all that our sponsor for this show is Game Time. We've all been there. We've logged on early to try to find concert tickets, and it can be a very painful process. I will tell you, trying to see Lady Gaga, Mother Monster, it was an awful experience on Ticketmaster. So much anxiety, but Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices usually drop as it gets much closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you very much, Game Time. And yes, I am here with the one and only Maddie Kenney of the New York Post. And so, first of all, Maddie, thank you so much for coming back. I know we spoke preseason into the first game of the regular season, and a lot has changed since we last spoke. And so I think where I want to start is, how did the New York Liberty get to being a team in 5th place, vying for home court, when it looked like earlier in the season they were going to be the 2 seed?
No, they were going to be the number 1 seed potentially. I mean, between the way that they started in the Lynx, I mean, it was the battle for the 1 seed between those two. They were on this top tier, and then it was like everyone else was under them. But we've talked in length about the injuries that this team has had. The fact that JJ, Brianna, Sabrina, all three of them have missed time in significant stretches, with JJ missing a month and then more recently Brianna missing a month. And so the lack of continuity within their starting lineups. Look, yesterday was like the 15th starting lineup, I want to say, of the season, a franchise record by far. The lack of continuity within their starting lineups, people being in and out of the rotation, adding Emma Mieseman at a time when you don't have Stewie. I mean, there's been a lot of Mod Podge lineups and rotations, so to speak. It's really challenging, Sandy, to get really creative in certain situations, but that has all led to a lack of consistent defensive identity, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later in this show. It has led to issues on offense at times. It has led to rebounding issues. I mean, a lot of the Liberty's issues are tied to, not playing a lot of games together. They are heading into a very pivotal 3-game road trip and final 2-week sprint of the season.
And they are going to be playing the Phoenix Mercury Saturday evening. And this could be a game that decides who gets home court advantage.
Mm-hmm. It really could. It could also determine where, whether the Liberty can get out of this 5th place. There's a lot of these games down the stretch. All these games, quite frankly, are must wins for the Liberty, and they need to approach them as such.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because at a practice this week, I asked Stewie, I said, what is the narrative surrounding this team right now? And she said, we are stacking wins. We want to be our best by the time the season ends. No hesitation. She knows what needs to get done. When it comes to, shifting into, I guess, the defensive chemistry and the rebounding issues that we've seen, there's been a lot of chatter about how rebounding is about effort, and to some degree it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess from all of the racking of our brains that we've been able to do, I guess, how can we explain to our listeners that maybe it isn't just effort? And so we have a video clip, but I do want to hear first a little bit from you, Maddie, explaining sort of what you're seeing.
You were without Brianna Stewart too, and she's one of the team's best rebounders, obviously, and I think also she's the motor of this team, which we've discussed in length, you and I. And without her, without having that motor, that leader, that person that you can't help but want to play hard for, we have seen that, we use the word effort. I wish there was a better word to use, because it's not that players aren't trying hard necessarily. It's just there's another level, there's another gear that can be reached when Stewie's on the floor. And we've seen that the last few games, with her being back. Yesterday, the Mystics win was her 2nd game back after missing that month absence. And so the clip that you're going to pull up, I believe, is what we're going to see is it's more of just being out of position. And once you're out of position, it's hard to get back into position. Once you have a defensive breakdown, it's hard to fix it. And there are certain players, Brianna's one of them, who can kind of make lemonade with oranges, so to speak. She's one of the few players that is excellent at, seeing maybe a defensive breakdown within her team and being able to help fix it. But some of that isn't just obviously she's one of the league's best defenders, but it's also, knowing and understanding her team.
And before I show this, I do want to give a major shout out to our friend and colleague, Lucas Kaplan, who found this watching the Chicago Sky New York Liberty game, the game that they lost before getting blown out on the road by Atlanta. They were without Sabrina during that game. And this was the game where Camila Cardozo stepped on Sabrina's left foot. So here I'm going to play the clip, and Lucas puts some captions on here, and you can sort of see, so the help is coming, right? So Cloud over helps, and then Emma, as you correctly said, Maddie, Emma hesitates. She thinks about making the long rotation, but because she hesitates, what happens? She can't really be there, and Angel rebounds, and then Michaela Onyenwere scores.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you were just saying, this is a lot about defensive chemistry and knowing where your teammates are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have players coming in and out that you have not had a lot of time to play with, it makes it very hard to be on a string. Do we think also that it's worth mentioning that in addition to Emma being new, there's also just new personnel that arrived this season? And since you had the big three in and out, it was hard for them to really develop chemistry.
In a lot of ways, yes. I mean, even when you brought like the starting lineup obviously is different. You don't have Benijah, you have Natasha Cloud in there. And Natasha at the beginning of the season talks a lot about how, defensively she's so used to having to help, and like almost to a point where she's over helping. And with the Liberty, they have a lot of really strong, smart, good defenders who have size and length and just the wits of knowing and the instincts to know where to be and how to recover. And you don't need her she doesn't need to overhelp, in ways that maybe she did on previous teams. And so she's kind of talked about that learning process and like understanding when to go and when not to. But I think we just haven't really seen that continuity, and it's kind of resulted in like, this chemistry issue.
Absolutely. And, I think speaking of Natasha Cloud being a new part of this team in general, I think some of that difficulty with chemistry, it's on the offensive end as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've both learned over the past month when Brianna Stewart has been out of the lineup, how important she is to organizing the offense and the pace that the offense is going at, and her ability to be on the ball so Sabrina Ionescu can run around and hit open shots moving off the ball is critical to how this team functions. Without even talking about Stewie, what's been going on that's made this offense a little clunky at times?
Well, I mean, for starters, you have two primary ball handlers who like to play with initiate offense and like to have the ball in their hands, and that's Natasha and Sabrina. So they're finding this balance between those two players within the offensive system. And also another thing, and I know you don't want to talk about Stewie specifically, but Sandy talked after last night's win about how Marine and Stewie did a really good job at controlling the tempo of things. And, when you watch this team, the Liberty love to play fast, but you want to play fast and you want to run, but you don't want to rush. And I think sometimes the Liberty have a tendency to rush things and then it's disorganized, and the Liberty thrive in organized chaos.
So it is, middle of the first. So what happens? So what do we see there? So
wide open driving lane.
Yep. She catches it. The lane is wide open, right in here, right? Cardozo is not, she's sort of on the block. But what does Cloud do instead? She misses. She gets her own rebound.
And she gets the putback basket, So, I mean, credit there. But, I think what you're trying to really show here is, when there are high percentage shots, such as a wide open driving lane to the basket, you should attack the basket. Natasha, she is a career 31% 3-point shooter. I don't hate her taking wide open 3-point looks. Like if she gets a good look, take it. But also being aware of when there are open driving lanes and knowing when to drive and even some of those off-ball movements you and I have been discussing. Sabrina is one of the best at her off-ball movements. And I talked to her a little bit about it. And she said that was something when she really committed to her off-season of conditioning and getting her conditioning up, it was to be able to play like her favorite player, Steph Curry, who is the king of moving off the ball and running. And she has a certain gravity to her. So as much as she moves, it opens things up for her teammates. And I think sometimes the Liberty's offense can get a little stagnant when there's not enough movement happening off the ball.
Absolutely. And that transitions well into the second clip that we're going to show. But the thing I want to say about the first one is, I think part of the problem with that shot is it happens so early in the shot clock.
Yes.
And, if that's Sabrina taking that shot, it's a different story because Sabrina is one of the better 3-point shooters in the league. And so you can live with her taking that early in the shot clock. But in my opinion, I believe Natasha Cloud, her best looks are the catch and shoot ones where the team moves the ball, the defense is moving, and then they find Cloud open and she's able to
100%,
catch and shoot.
Yeah.
So, but this next clip is from the fourth quarter of this game, and it's more about the off-ball movement. It is clutch time, right? In the fourth quarter, 1 minute and 33 seconds left. And so Sabrina Ionescu is about to inbound the ball. And so here we go. So Cloud is rushing up to receive it. Sabrina gets it back. Cloud sets a screen, right? And she gets in the corner right here. And so you'll see what happens here. She then drives, kicks to JJ. It was a rush shot and a miss. But I think the most important part of this happens right around here. So let's watch Cloud get it again. And she's moving, she's trying to screen, she's trying to move around, and then she stops, right? She's just sort of standing here. So I wonder, could she have cut to the basket for a good look right behind Rebecca Allen?
And so, yeah, it's easy to pause and look at things and be like, oh yeah, that should have been a backdoor cut, right? And you see it even maybe move forward and you're like, okay, maybe it might be hard, but I think you bring up a really good point. That was an opportunity for her to cut to the rim, and by doing that would again give you a high percentage. You only needed 2 points to go ahead, and instead the Liberty kind of take what could have been a good look, it turns into this not great look for JJ, where she has to the pass is a little bit off target. So then she has to get it back center and get it off, which, there were 7 seconds left on the shot clock, if I remember correctly, but it just wasn't the most. I would be really curious to know exactly how Sandy drew up the play. Because also, if you look, Sandy, is she pointing at Sabrina right now?
I believe she might be pointing at Emma.
Oh, at Emma, yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so you see Sandy is right here, and I think she's pointing at Emma, who has some space here. There's Angel. And then Sabrina is also open right up here as well.
Yeah.
But, again, there are more high percentage shots as we pause the clip right here. Emma with some space, Sabrina with some space.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think if I even go back a little bit, Cloud takes, there's a lot of, before she receives the ball. So let's go back here. Sabrina drives. She's in the corner. She's waiting. 1, 2, 3. So there was some time that went by there where, you could make a decision and just move. And Sabrina Ionescu I think, is very much so a facilitator that when you move, she finds you. You see Brianna Stewart moving all around, and you see her fly in for some of these layups. How does it happen? Stewie's moving around. She's not just standing. So it's a really interesting question. Coming up, we're going to talk about some solutions to some of these issues that we have discussed. But first, I want to tell you all about our good friends at FanDuel. So the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you very much, FanDuel. We appreciate you. And here we are back with Maddie Kenney of the New York Post. And so let's talk about some solutions. I mean, the Liberty have its 5 games left of the regular season before the playoffs. What do you think really are some of the solutions that can be employed in these final 5 games so that the team can finish the season strong?
So there's a few things. Get healthy. And the biggest thing is trying to take advantage of this final 2 weeks and really building momentum up in synergy with one another up to the playoffs.
And obviously in the Liberty's Thursday night game against the Washington Mystics, Jonquel Jones was out with an illness. Sabrina Ionescu was now dealing with a sore toe in that same left foot that Camila Cardozo stepped on. And she injured that toe at the end of their practice on Wednesday. So, there's hope that those two, and in addition to the Natasha Cloud as well. So there's hope that those 3, that's 3/5 of the typical starting lineup, can return for this road trip. So that's a huge part of it. How can Rebecca Gardner really be leveraged in helping this team play with a little bit more energy, especially since she hasn't played a ton of minutes throughout the season and she has the legs?
Her role has really fluctuated. And I know you and I talked at length with her the other day before the game about the difficulty and that whole stay ready idea. Of course, everyone talks about, always staying ready, but it's a lot harder than it is, or it seems to be. It can take a mental toll, especially when you aren't understanding why maybe you're not getting playing minutes and other people are. And so I think the thing that I like about Rebecca Gardner is she doesn't make a lot of mistakes. She is a hustle. She hustles, she plays hard, she plays tough, she plays aggressive. And she plays decent defense. She goes after rebounds. And so you could utilize her in a similar way that we talked about Jalen Sherrod, where sometimes Sandy would put her in for short runs just to kind of give the offense or give the defense a little bit more of a jolt that maybe it might be lacking. So I think you can utilize her in those types of ways. And look, once the playoffs come around, we all know what's going to happen with the rotation. It's going to shrink. It's going to get tighter.
I think it's important to remember Leonie Fibish is playing very exhausted. She has been put through the ringer this season because when all of these other players have been injured, she has had to take on more. She has had to play out of position at the power forward position. And, we can see it taking a toll on her. So part of the idea with Rebecca Gardner is you can bring Rebecca Gardner in to lessen Leonie Febish's load as we get into the postseason so that she's a little bit less fatigued.
She has been nonstop since Eurobasket. And, Eurobasket was a grind in a lot of ways, playing so many games in a condensed, schedule while also playing overseas. Like she had like a lengthy 10 plus hour flight, however long it was. I don't know. She was jet lagged. She was dealing with that. And she, outside of, Eurobasket, correct me if I'm wrong, she really hasn't missed any games like other than that. And she's been playing, she's been one of their more consistent starters. And so, and she plays with a lot of like effort. She is one of the team's best defenders. And so maybe trying to lighten her load over the last 5 games to allow her to get fresher legs, to allow her to, maybe take some time to recover.
And so before we sign off, Maddie, I think I just want to hit on the rebounding again. I mean, in that Mystics game on Thursday night, was that maybe a jumping off point for them when it comes to rebounding the ball and communicating to rebound the ball?
I think it definitely was a launch pad in a lot of ways beyond just rebounding. I mean, I think we saw the team take strides in a way that they've been needing to. I mean, look, that was an easy game for them to be like, okay, JJ and Sabrina are late scratches. We can beat the Mystics, but, feeling sorry for themselves because they have been caught feeling sorry for themselves at certain times this season. But Brianna had a message for the team pregame that we had discussed with her about, where she said, look, like we can beat this team. And like the message was received. I mean, they're slow start, maybe, but they were able to regroup and ended up finishing the game with a really strong effort. And so I think that it's definitely a launch pad for them.
Thank you all for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. And as you all probably heard at the top of the show, this is my last show on Locked On Women's Basketball. This is everyone at the 9 Basketball's last show on Locked On Women's Basketball. It's been an incredible ride. I've had some really insightful conversations, including this one, where we did a lot of film study, which how cool is that? And as Howard said, we will see you soon, just not here. Have a great weekend, everyone.